That way we could just hit. I deleted his case number from here so you could see the top of it. This is an affidavit, your color of law form. The color of law form can be found online, and you just enter in a couple sentences, sign it, certify your uh, um, signature. And so basically, this is the layout for an affidavit. You can use any AI system you like, Gemini, Google, um, Perplexity. I don't really like Chat GPT because it changes things. It did a lot of errors. I might even find some in here. So basically, first I start off with the fact that my husband was on drugs. And according to case law, you are not allowed to enter into any contract when you're on mind altering drugs. Civil Code 1556, rescission for unsound mind, and Civil Code 39. Okay. Um, I'm gonna go down. So we're gonna go lack of jurisdiction. Uh, I'm gonna continue. Um, Violations of due process, lack of capacity and consent, that's the drug addiction part, failure to establish standing on paternity and lawful orders, unlawful garnishment and financial due process violations, coercion, retaliation, bias, fraud and misconduct. Oh, I got to delete something personal off there. Failure to review, modify, terminate, support, excessive fines and administrative regularities. Guys, go look up the DOJ letter. That's the Department of Justice did a letter stating and letting the courts know that they were doing due process violations. They were overcharging people for whatever they're saying. It's not, you're not committing a crime by not paying. And this is what I'm talking about. How are we going to court for a criminal thing when it's not a criminal court case? Okay, so exhibits, these are all the things I submitted with it. DOJ letter, color of law declaration. That is a form you could fill out. Proof of drug addiction. We ordered his documents from different courts where he got arrested for doing crimes that when he was on drugs. Um, Missing judicial signatures and seals. All those things. So let's see what else. Proof of homelessness and low income assistance, credit reports and alleged debt discrepancies, garnishment and child support enforcement notices, employment termination and unemployment records, proof of license revocation, which is against the law now. They just changed it in 2025. Proof of incarceration, inconsistent and false statement from an agent. It's documented. And imputed income. That means that they assumed what he was making. By the way, when you're in jail, is if you don't own a business, you're not making money. Okay. And if you're self-employed and you have to physically work, even if you have a business. Okay. If you watch Chris Child Support Made Simple, he goes over how they can't garnish you with the 1099. All right, so subject matter jurisdiction was the hardest thing for me to understand. I'm going to do it as briefly as possible. There is subject matter jurisdiction. That means, is the type of case able to be seen in the court, in this particular court? Like I said, a criminal case cannot be looked at in a family law court. A federal court case cannot be seen in a state courthouse. Okay. A state lawsuit, small claims cannot be seen at child support agency office. And that includes violation of separation of powers. If if you have a article 1 case, it cannot be seen in an article 3 courthouse. And we'll get more into that on another video, but I just wanted to share that briefly. Then there's another thing called personal jurisdiction. That means they have um rights over your physical body. If you live in that state, if you live outside, in the way that I found out, at least, and we're doing it this way, is that we are submitting a special appearance when we submit, even when we're submitting anything to the court. Because I didn't know this, my first thing that I had submitted, or my husband and I submitted for his case, was a motion for dismissal. Well, that kind of automatically makes you a general appearance. So I'm so glad it got rejected. And so I'll tell you guys how I remedied that. Okay. So these are all, take a look. I can't go over each one of these, but take a look. I want you guys to actually look up all these case laws, the articles, the Constitution, and keep in mind that the Constitution trumps any state codes or regulation. Our Constitution, our federal codes, and there is a, let me give you that federal code.
Found in Article 6, Clause 2 of the U.S. Constitution, commonly known as the Supremacy Clause. It establishes that the Constitution, federal laws, and treaties are the supreme law of the land, meaning they take priority over any conflicting state constitutions or laws.
All right, guys. So I just wanted to give you that, just so you guys know. Okay. When there's a debt, a loan, which child support constantly states on their paperwork, on their websites, how are we seeing a debt or a contract, monetary contract, in a family court, especially after the children are over 18 years old? Violations of due process. You can screenshot this if you want. These are all the things that I found in my husband's file. The Fourth Amendment. A lot of things are going to be covered by the Fourth, the Eighth, I think the Sixth, and the, did I say the Eighth, Constitution. Read over those things. And in court, I told my husband, like, do not allow the lawyers to speak over you. You can object. You can tell them, no, I have the right to be heard. Their job is to help us. That is a federal rule, federal code in our laws. We are protected, guys. So when my husband was incarcerated, supposedly he got served. Well, there's no documentation in the file. Child support is stating that they served him. They never served him. It's not documented. And if it's not in the documents, it never happened. If they want to pull it out now, you can question the validity of that form. Where did it come from? And actually, it's hearsay, because whoever's saying that, they weren't physically there to witness it. And according to, this is one of the major ones that I wanted to, for my husband's case. Let me see. Right here. No law proof of service exists, including service during incarceration. When you are incarcerated, you have to have a timestamp and personal delivery to the inmate. It has to be documented, and it also has to be submitted into the system in the court. The court has to have legal documentation of that, which my husband's case didn't. And here are all the federal codes, penal codes, state codes. Okay. There was no signature. Some of them were typed out names. If you're not looking at your docket, and your case documents, you don't know. There were no court seals. Well, the reason why there's no judicial seals is because it's an administrative hearing. That basically means just like a doctor, you can't the nurse can't write a prescription for legally write a prescription for the for you and say they're a doctor, because you have to have licenses and go to school to be a doctor. So this is the same case. How can somebody who's doing administrative stuff, think about your job. The administrative person is the secretary in the front. She's not the actual owner, or he. Shouldn't say that. There's no evidence, guys. Whatever your baby mama says, whatever your baby daddy says, because I've been through it custody with my ex-husband, so I can speak on this. They could say whatever they want, but they have to prove it. And the federal code 804B says there has to be evidence. Look in your file if it's missing. Okay, we're coming close here. Lack of capacity was the major one. You cannot sign anything when you're under the influence of drugs. You do need proof, you do need witnesses. And so we ended up pulling files from my husband's criminal records that actually state he was on drugs. And I'm a witness. I've known him since I was 11 years old. I used to pay for things for him. I actually had one of where he was living at. Somebody had called me, I won't mention who, had called me and said, hey, can you help with the bills? And I put the gas bill under my name, and I'm probably going to have to subpoena that to prove it. Okay. I supported him financially. Okay. Paternity. That's a whole other thing, guys. I will have to do another video on paternity. Just know when you sign a birth certificate, you're entering a contract. When you enter that contract, they're legally supposed to, according to federal rule 56, show you a video, show you, and you have to sign. So you have to have multiple things according to this rule in order to establish paternity, and it has to be documented in your case file. If you don't see it in there, it doesn't exist. You can fight it, but you need to push. They're going to lie to you. They're going to tell you, yes, it's in there. Show me. And what you have to do is everything you want, you have to put it in writing and request it, because they will lie. They will abuse the system. They are abusing their authority over you. Garnishments. Guys, I looked up my husband's name. Well, we looked up on the UCC state website, state secretary's website. His name is not under any orders or um any liens on his name. There's none. So legally, how are they deducting money? He was let go of a job April 2024. Well, according to 31 USC 3720D6, they cannot garnish you within 24 months of being re-employed. Guys, look this stuff up, because sometimes all the other stuff, like say you were served, say they did everything, the process right, because now they're legally, they're seeing that all these people are contesting. And so with the UCC Form 11 that we submitted, it was $5 for us to get a certified copy and search his name on the state secretary's office to see if there's any liens in under his name, and there wasn't any. um there's no garnishment order in his documents. The garnishment amounts are way over what the federal codes are. According to 31 USC 3720D1, it should only be 15%. And he did report to them that he had lost the jobs, and so they They know what they're doing, and they know exactly what they're doing. Okay, so for your credit reporting, if you haven't checked already your credit report, they are putting it in your credit report, which is not acceptable. But since you don't address it, it keeps happening. And once you get your case dismissed, you'll be able to submit your paperwork to the reporting agency, to the three bureaus, to take it off. But notate that there's conflicting amounts from what they're stating you owe and what they're showing. So take screenshots of everything. Take screenshots, print out of 3 copies. So what I've learned, because I've done court a few times, is that you want to have, I went through my own divorce, my own custody battles, and so you want to, I had to have 3 copies at all times, because if for any reason you want to present something in court, you they will not accept it unless you have copies for everybody, the judge and the other party and yourself, or depending on how many parties there are, that's how many copies you need. Also, you need to submit those things at least, I would say, do it a week in advance. If you want to do, like, slide it in there last minute, submit it 3 days before the court case. I think that's actually the limit. But it has to be, in order for something to be reviewed during a court case, it has to be documented. Just like how you are going to reflect the fact that they did not document everything, they can do the same thing to you. So make sure you're submitting everything. Have it, the court has to stamp it. And I don't know if I mentioned this already, but Los Angeles courthouse, they weren't willing to help us. By law, they're supposed to. And they turned us away and didn't allow us to submit our paperwork. I told my husband, let's go to the Pomona courthouse because they're smaller and they'll want to help us. The woman at the counter, thank God for her. I always pray and I ask God to put the right people in my path when I do anything, the DMV. If you watch my TikTok, I talk about it. And so this woman said, oh, you need a cover sheet. You need a declaration cover sheet. So she was so gracious. She gave us a copy. She gave us 3 copies, but I went and I got more copies there so that I could have it for future. So when submitting the affidavit, you want to have a cover sheet. Riverside had their own quote unquote cover sheet, but it's only accessible by the clerk. So since the clerk gave it to me, I made copies of that. And I'm going to be using it to submit more stuff. I have to resubmit this particular one because LA County rejected me. But I was able to submit TJ Tillman's unconsent form. His I used his template. And like I said, I adjusted a lot of things to fit our case because not everybody's case is the same. I had to add the fact that my husband was under all mind altering drugs. Okay, keep moving because we don't have a lot of time. Conflicting debt. Um, look up these codes, like I said. Look up these codes and review everything. Make sure it aligns to what your case has. Review all your paperwork. I know I keep saying that, but I'll probably have to show you guys our paperwork so that you could see what you're looking at. Okay. Um, okay, so the child support agency should review your case every 3 years, and they always have to account for the fact that you need to self support yourself. You have to be able to afford housing and food and transportation before they garnish, which They never did that for my husband. And I can only speak for myself, but I'm pretty sure I've heard multiple people tell me the same thing. Sorry, I had to delete something personal in here. And I'll share that in a minute. Okay. So do you guys remember Inspector Gadget? All right. So now we're under coercion, retaliation, and bias. So one of the major things I found out about is that the court and child support have a contract with each other. And it's actually in federal codes. Federal Code 42 USC 658A B E and I, specifically I, shows the incentive plan created by the Title 4D funding. The agent actually gets a commission for putting you on child support. And that right there is a violation. It's a bias. The court's getting paid, the child support agency is getting paid, and the state's making a lot of money off of poor people who can barely house themselves, especially in California, guys. Rent is insane. That's why we left. Bye bye. Okay, there. Okay, so the fact that they're taking away your driver's license, they took away my husband's driver's license. Well, guess what? You're forced to go to court and be like, how are you supposed to go to work? How are you supposed to live your life? How are you supposed to? And according to the Constitution, we have the right to our property. Your driver's license is your property, it legally belongs to you. And here are all the federal codes. If you guys look up Cavadas versus Martinez, I forgot where I got this particular one from. I might have just researched it because a lot of this stuff I was adamant, you guys, to find things that were going to help my husband get his life back, bro. Like, it's horrible the things that they're doing. It's depressing to not be able to live your life to the fullest. And that's what our country's about. Life, liberty. Hello. How many of you guys have had the agents call you and threaten you? They did that to my husband. You're going to go to jail. We're going to revoke your license. We're going to take away your passport if you don't show up, if you don't pay. Guess what, guys? That is coercion. They are threatening you. That is against the law. The law says people cannot threaten your life. They cannot threaten your liberty. They cannot lock you up for debt. And I'm going to give you guys that case law. As a matter of a person cannot be imprisoned for debt by a federal court in any state where imprisonment for debt has been abolished. 28 USC 2007. You guys caught that, right? 28 USC 2007. You cannot go to jail, guys, for money owed. Okay, now here's the part that I had to delete. Okay, guys. One of the custodial parents on one of his accounts was actually arrested for welfare fraud. These cases are open because most of the time, because the other parent, the custodial parent, is on welfare. Welfare is a grant. Grants are not to be paid back, guys. That's a violation too. And so I quoted here all the federal codes, all the family codes, all the state codes that say that it's fraud. If it's open by fraud, it is fraud. And so they cannot have an open case on you when the person actually lied about who they were, where they lived, their finances, whatever the case may be. We actually found the case number, and that would be important if you guys can find, if that's if that falls under your case. Try to find, and you can find it on public websites, uh people finder. I forgot what other and you know what's crazy, it disappeared when I checked again later on. I'm so blessed that I had already saved all that information before the custodial parent had deleted it off of the public, because you can remove your name and all of that. We ended up removing our name because your address is on there, your phone number is on there. This one is a specific case thing that happened to my husband. The the commissioner actually accepted the fact that there was a false statement made about my husband. The agent on the case, he met this woman in a different building, in an office. It wasn't even at the court. So tell me how this judicial officer was able to sign off with the by the way, the commissioner wasn't even there that day. They took the agent's word for it. And this person said that my husband was there but wasn't there. So according to uh, jurisdictionary, Dr. Frederick Graves, his course says that um, you can ask for clarity at any point. And like I said, you have to document these things, do it in writing. So that's what we're doing here. We not only right here said we want, the judicial officer allowed it, we also said that the agent lied. Failure to review, modify, and terminate, like I said, every 3 years, they have to mandatory check your calculations. And you have to push the fact that it has to be a financial advisor to calculate those things. Not just any Joe Schmo can do it. They imputed, it's documented in his file. Look for it where it says assumed or imputed. His actually says imputed income. They made up their own number. They said that he must be making $1,200 a month. The guy was in jail. The guy could barely. I really want you guys to get all the information you can out of this. We're not charging money, but we do appreciate if you sow a seed. We do help the poor, the oppressed, the addicted, the homeless on our own time. And so we do this on our own because we want to, because this is what the Lord has put in our hearts. And so we I am doing this out of obedience to Christ. God has told me to bring information to the public to help get people to stop being oppressed. It is depressing not to have enough funds. A lot of people do drugs because they are so depressed. They're so down. They feel worthless. They feel tired. They feel like they can't get ahead. They give up. It makes me want to cry. My husband and I have a heart for people. We love people and we want people to succeed. And just know that even if you're not a believer, if you're getting this information for free, God has put it in front of you for a reason. He wants to set you free in multiple ways. And so I hope this helps at least one person. Please share this information with as many people as you can. Like and follow and subscribe. Even if you don't, you can even turn off the alarms of when I post videos if you don't want to watch my stuff. But help us get out. You can be part of our ministry by just sharing the information, by giving $1, by um, even dropping off. If you want information, our phone number is 331-222-9476. We can tell you information to where you can drop stuff off or mail things to help our cause. Okay, failure to review. I went over that. Part two. This is part three. Um, you automatically should have reviews every 3 years. They have already violated our rights by not even doing that. The minute my husband and I went to a convention, a church convention, and without pay, we missed work. Okay, God provided, thank God. But he didn't get a check that week. And 2 days later, we were already getting emails because we don't share. You don't have to share your information with child support. You don't have to share where you live. You don't have to share your information with them. But we moved and we got an email. So I went ahead and I printed it for my husband. And I said, that's it. I'm tired of them bullying you. I'm tired of my husband has been gotten beat up his whole life. And he will tell you a little bit of his testimony, but I want you guys to know my husband is not a bad guy. He's not a deadbeat. He's not a deadbeat dad. He did his best with what he had. He made mistakes in his life like we all do, and he's trying to recover and do better. But people keep just kicking him down while he's down, kicking him when he's down. We asked the custodial mom to take this off. She refused. You know, where is the love? Where is the unconditional caring for people? I just said I wasn't going to babble. All right, excessive fines and administrative irregularities. Guys, the fines are extreme. If you look up this case, this was a really interesting case. Timms versus Indiana. This case went back and forth for a minute. They were fighting this in the appellate court. This guy got I forgot what kind of car taken away from him because he did a crime and he fought it. He's like, you're gonna take my very expensive car for a little thing that wasn't even $1,000 or something like that. You got to look it up because I can't remember the top of my head. This is where you guys come in. You have to do your due diligence. That means you have to research. You have to look into your own stuff. This is not going to come easy, but take your time. Whenever your constitutional rights are violated, you have unlimited statute of limitation to bring this to court. And at any time you can also um, bring up the lack of subject matter jurisdiction in a court case. You can reopen any case. It doesn't matter how long it's been. So the last time my husband went to court for this or got information about the court stuff was, I believe, in 2015. The arrears have just grown. And let's talk real numbers. They're stating my husband owes $139,000 for both cases and in arrears. I think in one of his cases, the actual amount that was originally due is like $4,000. Where are they getting this $139,000 from a guy who didn't hold a regular job, didn't make good money ever? When I started talking to my husband recently, because we just got to bed back together not too long ago, he wasn't he was living in his car. He was couch surfing. How are these fathers and moms? I have another friend who just said she paid off $25,000 of child support debt and her daughter didn't get 1 cent of it. She was on drugs. She was on drugs a lot of her because something traumatic happened to her life. I forgot what I was saying. But okay, excessive fines. Just make sure that you include this depending on where you're at in your arrears, especially when you have long-term arrears or like in our case, the agent out of retaliation, she doubled his child support because he couldn't answer her question. Yeah, that's a violation. They're getting away with so much, and it's up to you to exercise your rights. And if you're not saying anything, guess what? They're going to continue to hurt you and violate you, pretty much. I just put this in here. I mean, it's not a major thing, but his actual name is not on either document. Like, do you know how many Jose Martinez's there are in the world? One says junior, he's not a junior. The other one's middle name is God knows what. The code for the fact that a commissioner is not capable of doing calculations on your payments, what the payment should be, what the amount should be, how much you how much income you make. And nobody ever asked my husband how much he pays for rent, how much he pays for food, if he owns a car, if how does he get to work, if he works, when he worked. Nobody ever asked this. And if you were on the welfare system, if you ever got general what is it called, general relief, GR, in California we call it GR. If you ever got general relief and you're homeless, and we have documentation that my husband was always low income. Either he was in jail or low income. How do they expect somebody who's poor, who's barely who can't even pay rent by himself? Here's our conclusion, and I got this Bonita Laro versus New Jersey Department of Human Services from Chris at YouTube channel is Child Support Made Simple. If you go and view my first video ever, I list every one I used to get all my information, and I also used ChatGPT in the beginning. Now I don't use them because their information is false a lot of times. I use Perplexity, and I use Gemini, I use Google, I use Google Documents to get information and to put my information in here. So, according to Bonita versus this, that case says that the actual child support is a federal agency, it's not a state agency. So, they should not be seeing our case in a state court. According to them, they are a federal child support agency. Okay? And again, these are all the things that exhibits we added. DOJ letter. I have it, a copy of it. If you guys need it, you can email me at debbiesministries@gmail.com. Debbie's is with the Z, and ministries is with the Z. And it's Deb, DEBBEEZ, ministries, MINISTRIEZ @gmail.com. I named that after Deborah, the judge in the Bible. God bless you guys. I hope this helps, and we'll see each other soon.